The 2001 A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick, is visually filled with edits by the editor, Ray Lovejoy. Before we get into the various elements of editing that are presented in this film, we first need to define what editing is. According to Richard Barsom and Dave Monahan, in the Looking at Movies and Introduction to Film, editing is defined as the selection of shots and sound with the basic building block of film editing, which is the shot, and its most fundamental tool is the cut. Page 282. A cut is seen in several ways, one being a process where an editor determines an endpoint and an outpoint shot. An endpoint shot is the frame at which the shot will appear on screen, and an outpoint shot is the final frame we will see before the shot is replaced with another shot. Page 282. In the beginning of the film, we start to see elements of editing play out. In the beginning scene where the apes spot the marble, one of the apes has eyes on something on the ground, and as the audience, we think that the ape is looking at the skull. The shot seen as the ape is having a memory when it discovered the marble goes back to the ape, and we will see that the ape has now have a bone in his hand. The ape starts to smash the other bones on the ground, and a third shot of another animal comes into the shot in the middle of the ape smashing the bones. This creates for the audience that the ape has now discovered a way to fight off the other apes and get food for the grouping of apes. This shot of the ape smashing the bones is considered as a match-on-action cut. Our authors define match-on-action cut as cutting during physical action and having a connecting shot at the same point in the same action. Page 304. In another film directed by John Ford, according to the textbook, and the film is Stagecoach, also uses match-on-action cut near the conclusion of the movie. The authors describe the scene where Doc Boone is confronting Luke Plumer, who murdered his friend's father and brother. Plummer then sends down a bottle of whiskey, and Boone catches the bottle with ease, holding eye contact with Luke Plumer while Boone drinks. Page 306. The authors state that a match-on-action edit uses the movement of the bottle to cut from the medium-long shot of gathered to a medium shot of Doc. 306. Another editing technique that is used in the film is graphic match cut. According to authors, a graphic match cut is the repeat of similar shapes, colors, and other compositional elements from one shot to the next that implies a direct link between the events and content presented in the two different shots. Page 306. In the film 2001 A Space Odyssey, it has an example of graphic match cuts within the textbook that talks about a particular scene. Within the textbook, the graphic match cut that is presented within the film is where the first ape discovers the first tool, which is a bone that is used as a weapon. One of the apes creates the new tool by throwing it up in the air, which is the first shot. The next shot is the following of a bone in the air, followed by the final cut that goes into space where a spacecraft is shown. 307. The graphic match cut of this scene takes the audience from prehistory to the 21st century of modern day technology. Another film that uses graphic match cut that is stated in the book is by director Jordan Peele's Get Out. The authors state that the graphic match cut is presented between one of the antagonists, Missy Armitage, and her daughter's boyfriend, Chris Washington, where two compositionally similar extreme close-ups of fingers nervously scratching the armrests of chairs links Chris' current situation with a hypothetically imposed childhood memory. 306. In an interview with the New York Times, director Jordan Peele, he talks about of his film Get Out with one question that specifically is related to the protagonist, Chris Washington having a memory of his childhood, and Peele giving his take on the meaning behind this scene in the film. The question that was asked to Peele was if the scene where Chris remembered his young childhood and watching television when his mother died in a car crash and was not there for her. And the interviewee wondered if having young Chris watching TV was a source of guilt for Chris. Peele's response was, "It's a metaphor for his inaction and feeling of guilt where he neglected his family." The inaction that Peele is describing is definitely shown when Missy Armitage hypnotizes him into having to remember his childhood where he lost his mother. And the graphic match cut of the scratching of his fingers linked with his memory also shows the inaction of Chris because he could not do anything to stop this situation. Furthermore, Stanley Kubrick does not do a lot of interviews. If he does, it's on rare occasions. And an online article made by Brett Lambert talks about how he found a lost interview of Kubrick where he describes the meaning and concept of the film 2001: A Space Odyssey. The question that was asked to Kubrick was, "Did you deliberately try for ambiguity as opposed to specific meaning for any scene or image?" Kubrick's answer was, "No, I didn't have to try for ambiguity. It was inevitable, but it's the ambiguity of all art, of a fine piece of music or a painting. You don't need written instructions by the composer or painter accompanying such works to explain them. Explaining them contributes nothing but superficial cultural value, which has no value except for critics and teachers who have to earn a living." Reactions to art are always different because they are always deeply personal. Lambert, 2010. Furthermore, with having the editor Ray Lovejoy editing this film, we see how his editing skills play into meanings and the thought of ambiguity because different shots that connect can create more than just one idea. Overall, both Stanley Kubrick and Ray Lovejoy created a visually moving film that has different editing techniques that gives their audience a sense of meaning to each scene that is shown throughout the film.